So we will now transition to a fireside chat panel focusing on sharing forest sector DE&I successes. Representatives from different areas of the forest sector will share their experiences with DE&I and the successes they have seen within their organizations. After we've heard from each speaker, we will open the floor up for questions. Now I have the honor of introducing Craig Blair, Chairman, Board of Managers, Resource Management Service, LLC. Craig, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mia, and express my appreciation to all of the individuals and organizations that were responsible for creating this symposium, a very worthwhile effort. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of good learnings that come out of the sessions this week, and we certainly look forward to participating in that. I don't have any slides, but would like to share with the group, I guess, 4 things. One, a little bit about the journey that our company, that RMS, has had in terms of DEI over the last 5 years. 3 key learnings that we've picked up over that time frame, and then how we have tried to apply those learnings to advance the effort and progress that we're making in DEI. And then finally, maybe a little discussion on not just what we can do individually within our respective organizations, but what we might be able to do collectively to influence and improve DEI within the forestry profession. So I believe CJ made a comment earlier about progress, and I think actually my comments today are more around a report on progress as opposed to a report on success. Progress that represents some small changes and successes, but certainly as a firm, we aspire to be diverse, not just in employment, not just the metric of percentage of employees, but in leadership, but in ownership and in governance. And I'd say that, this is a journey that we've begun, one that we're committed to, but we certainly have much in front of us to get where we'd like to be as a company. Just a little background on our firm. RMS is a 71-year-old employee-owned forest management firm. We have 155 employees. Predominantly our business is in the southern U.S. We do have business outside of the U.S. in Brazil, New Zealand, and Australia. Our journey on DEI began in 2017. I think the catalyst would be that as a company, we realized that we would perform better. We'd have better success as a firm if we were more diverse. We'd have better employee engagement. We'd make better decisions. We'd be able to recruit and retain more talented individuals. So there's a little bit of self-interest in that, but also consistent with one of the principles of our firm. We believe that the profession of forestry will be much more successful. We'll be able to achieve opportunities that we have as a profession only if we become more diverse, if we start to reflect better the important constituencies that we must engage with each day as a company. So we began that journey. Our focus, naively, we think, well, if you want to become more diverse as a forestry company, you just begin hiring women and African American and people of color as foresters. Well, we quickly found out that it's a very limited supply. So recruitment became our early focus. And we came out of the gate, we decided that we would fund $10,000 a year scholarships for juniors and seniors that are women and people of color in forestry. We also would have an active intern program. As a firm, we have 155 employees. This year, we funded 17 internships, and increasingly a focus on creating experiences, work experiences for those underrepresented constituencies. As we did that over the last 5 years, I think this year we stepped back and when those to see what progress we're making. I think we found out that while we are making progress, I say as the CEO up until the end of September this year, that my patience has been tested with a degree of progress. And I'll get to one of the learnings that speaks to, I think, one of those things that has limited our advancement of this. But January 2017, just to give you some metrics, if you look at our forestry positions within the firm, 93% of our forestry positions were held by white males. So again, we had a very low base to start with. I will say that over the last 5 years, we've more than doubled the number of underrepresented constituents in our forestry positions. But again, that's a small base. 3 key learnings. One, is a commitment from leadership. If the CEO and executive leadership in your organization or its representative in your organization, if they're not committed to this, then I'll just tell you, don't begin the journey. Because if you don't have that senior executive commitment, and we talk about commitment in three ways. I use an analogy about head, heart, and hands. First off, there has to be intellectual commitment, an understanding of the business case. And in our view, simply 2/3 of the people in this country are not white males. So a business model that allows barriers to prevent my access to that portion of human capital just makes no sense. We know that as an organization, we'll do better if we become more diverse. So that's an intellectual commitment. It needs to be an emotional commitment as well. People really need to believe that this is the right thing to do. It needs to be more than just a head. There needs to be a heart part of this too. Because those of you that have worked on this, you understand it's not necessarily going to be easy. There will be challenges. There'll be challenges that require more than your intellectual commitment to push through those things. It's going to take an emotional commitment. But in addition to head and hearts, one thing that we realized I think in the last year or so, that it requires a practical commitment. And that's the hands part. That's the willingness as an organization to change the things that you're doing to create the outcomes that your head and your heart say you want to achieve. And that's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, the reality is that's in recruitment, that's in interview process, that's in hiring, that's in mentoring, that's in development. Those are the things that will get you as an organization where you're going to go. Second key learning is you have to tailor a program to your organization. Your RMS is largely a professional organization. Most of our 155 employees have some forestry professional degree. We work in geographically isolated work units and in functionally isolated work units. So you have teams of small teams of individuals that work really close together. Our culture as an organization promotes decentralized decision-making, a lot of autonomy. So as we have to balance corporate objectives to become more diverse with the autonomy that local work units have, that creates some approaches that tailor the way we look at increasing diversity in the company. The third key learning is the importance, and it's mentioned just a minute ago by Heather, around partnerships. I think an effort to identify, to develop, and to leverage partnerships. And we have done that specifically with a small group of universities. We have very, very deep relationships, CEO to dean level relationships at North Carolina State, at Auburn University, at Mississippi State, and at Louisiana Tech. And that's a subset. And we started with a much broader universe of schools that we worked with. We found these are universities that have a lot of energy. They're making investments in DI. They're very innovative and creative, and we can leverage their energy to help us to do more of what we can as a firm. We also are working with NC State around a program to connect with the historically Black colleges and universities. They have a very innovative program that Sam Cook leads there. So we work specially with them around scholarships and internship programs through the HBCUs. We also recently, I may be getting ahead of the game on a public announcement, but we are co-branding a scholarship program with Terry Baker and SAF. I'm sorry, Terry, if I shouldn't say that today, so you have to forgive me. But again, a way that we can increase distribution and our access to places where we can engage with a more diverse base of college students, so partners. The last piece around the practices, again, I want to focus in on some specific things that we learned that we needed to do and change if we were going to create the outcomes that we want to create as an organization, those to which we are committed. First, in oversight. We all need structures that provide accountability. So we have developed an oversight team that has an executive sponsor, but it also has broad representation from within the firm. So it's not just a top down, it does reflect the viewpoints of individuals throughout our company. They're charged with monitoring best practices, the setting and adapting our standards and the things that we do, and provide accountability and reporting back to our board and to other groups. A very, very important group that we believe to make sure that we stay on track with our effort at DI. Recruitment. clearly we want to support and engage with our university partners. We also came to understand that we needed to broaden the group to schools to which we were recruiting. One of the things was that we, behaviorally, we recruited in the schools that we graduated from, which probably were more likely to have people that looked like me than look like some of the individuals that are on this call. So one of the things that we need to try to broaden the schools to which we recruit. So maybe there are areas where we can find a greater representation of women or people of color in the schools. Hiring is probably the biggest piece, and a number of elements of that. Number one, we want to make sure that we post broadly any openings we have in the firm. We would like to cast a very wide net so that the likelihood that an individual that is qualified and seeking employment for that position will be able to find us and know that the position is open and available. One of the things, once we receive resumes, is to cull that down to a small group of 4 or 5 candidates to bring in for interviews. And we discovered, among many other things, that there's research that indicates that if you only have one diversity candidate that's part of your interview pool, the likelihood of that person succeeding in gaining employment is less than 10%. It's probably less than 5%. But if you have at least 2 diversity candidates in interview pool, that percentage of success goes way up. It goes up to about 30%. So we have a policy that as we bring in candidates for interviews, we're going to do everything possible to bring in 2 candidates that represent some of the diverse constituencies. We also realize that the teams that interview and make recommendations on hiring decisions, number one, they need to be trained. They need to understand the corporate objectives around becoming more diverse. They also need to understand and be aware of biases that would be present in that process. Finally, we found historically a lot of times that we would have 2 candidates that would be almost equal. And it seemed like more times than not, the woman candidate or the person of color candidate would be just a little bit below the white male candidate. And I'm sure that shocks the group here. So one of the things that we do as a group, realizing that there's a band of error in our assessment. And if we really believe as a company that we want to be more diverse, there's value in being more diverse, then in cases like that, we're going to lean to the side that says we're going to hire the individual that makes us more diverse. At that point with entry level, there's a band of areas which is the best candidate. Development, we do have a mentoring program for women and minorities in the firm. We will have very specific monitoring and reporting. Our objective in reporting is that it be regular and it be honest. Internally, the Oversight Committee will report to our Board of Managers our progress each year in very detailed way, so we understand, are we doing the things we commit to do? We'll have regular external reporting through our sustainability reports. We also, as practices, want to provide leadership in the sector. First, that's by example. Second, that's by participating in public forums to use, the box that we have to stand up and to speak on these issues. And also it's to encourage organizations that we're members of, that they become more diverse themselves. So a few practices that we believe will result in improving diversity and inclusion in our firm over time. And finally, just to end on some things, what can we do more collectively? We look at this as really a building project. It's kind of a pipeline. There's building awareness of natural resource careers. There's building academic engagement, so excellence in centers where they're really engaged on DEI at universities. And there's building financial support and employment opportunities with firms like RMS and others that hire foresters. And I know Kathy is following me, and I'll just say something. If we look at the front end, and the reality is I can't hire more women and Black foresters until they are more graduates. And we can't get more graduates until we can get more to enroll in the university. So there's the front end of this pipeline around increasing awareness. Like Heather said, that in natural resources, no matter what your passion is, no matter what your talent is, there's a place for you to fulfill that and to practice and take that passion to work in our sector. That's not very widely known. And there's an organization called Project Learning Tree that is part of the SFI. PLT has a nationwide network of educators at all grade levels. They've demonstrated the ability to develop effective programs in Canada. And I tell you, if we as a sector, and I'll speak to all these organizations that are listening, I'm not sure who all's here, but if your organization has the ability to support financially PLT to build programs in the US that help create awareness of natural resource careers in the African American community, in Indigenous and Hispanic. And, that's the thing that will prime the pump to give us more opportunities to bring through Forster graduates and to hire them and become more diverse. So, and with that, I'll stop and look forward to any questions we might have in a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Craig.